Hello, good evening, and welcome. Today we are looking at the stability agreement in our mining clause in the nation. One who asks, what's the stability agreement? Well, once upon a time, we used to be a very unstable nation. So in order to attract foreign investors, especially in the mining sector, we had to put a stability clause in there, meaning that when they come for a 10 to 15-year period, we were not going to touch their investment. There's an upside and there's a downside. And the government is saying that, you know what, we need to go back and look at these clauses. Now, it's a win-win situation. But are they going to agree, i.e. the big mining giants? But I even want to go further and ask, do we even need to mine at all, considering the degradation to the environment? The money we are making, is it enough to even reclaim the land in which we mine on? Going further to talk about the waters and things that are being poisoned, it's going to be an interesting discussion. Right after the montage, I will introduce my guest. Hello and welcome back. Nana Sakwa, PM Express. I just remember I didn't introduce myself in the show in the beginning, but no, I say, you can always go back and recollect. Today we're looking at the mining stability agreement as a nation, and with me to discuss that in the studio is Kweku Afare. Yes. Programs officer for WACAM, so you know he's all for the environment. He's a tree hugger just like myself. And then on the phone is Ahmed Nantongba, who's the Director of Public Affairs for the Environment of Chamber of Mines. Hello, Ahmed.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Very good. Ahmed, I'll start with you. And we're looking at renegotiating mining stability agreement. But to the general public or the average guy who doesn't know what mining stability agreement is, what is it that we have to even go and renegotiate?
Well, good evening again. Good evening to your listeners. I mean, stability agreement is basically straightforward, something that is maybe fixed for a specific period of time. So if, like, say, you are signing an agreement and you say in the next 10 years, 5 years, or 15 years, everything in the agreement, nothing will change. In the layman's sense, that's what it means, sign a stability agreement.
How long have we had this, the original stability agreement?
Which original stability agreement?
Well, if you're going to renegotiate it, obviously it means there's something there that you're going to renegotiate.
Yeah, the government signed agreement with companies, basically Newmont and AngloGold.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's those agreements that they feel that maybe things have changed and they need to look at them again.
Exactly, and I want to find out, when did they sign it, and then when did they realize things have changed?
Well, you see, that's the question, because it was signed by the government. And
was it signed last year, last 2 years, last 3 years?
Oh, I don't have autonomy. I think it was signed when Newmont was about to go into production. So it was signed basically in New. I don't have the figures of hand, but I think 3, 4, 5 years thereabouts.
Okay, let's look at the renegotiation. What do we want added to the stability agreement, or what do we want taken out?
Well, this question will better be answered by the state, because it's the government that is saying that they want to renegotiate. So they have to come and say, these are the items we think we should really look at, or these are the things. For us, the laws are made by the state, and the mining companies are working within the country, and they all have to abide by the laws of the state. So if the government says that we need to look at it, why not? Companies are willing to look at it, government, and see how, if there's any improvement that can be done.
So, Chamber of Mines, what's your position?
I think that it's difficult to say what is our position, whether we are for or against, until we know what it is that they want to renegotiate. I mean, definitely it's a negotiation, and so many things we put on board, and some will be agreed to, some others might not be agreed to. So, for us, we think that we are open, and we are transparent, and then whatever it is that the team should look at, we think that we are with the government, and we'll look at all these things so we can get a win-win situation for everybody.
Okay, but are you comfortable with the original agreement that we have?
You mean me as a person, or me as
no, because I believe you're public affairs for environment Chamber of Mines. So I think you speak for them.
You see, I don't want to sometimes say I'm comfortable. No, it was signed. It was an agreement that was virtually looked at and mutually agreed to. So at that point, that was what they agreed to. So if there's any change, so many things could change between that time and now. So I don't want to say whether I'm comfortable or uncomfortable. Like I said, we have to sit down and look at the agreement and see what has to be looked at. And that's basically the key issue for us now. And then if any amendment needs to be made, like you also said, that some might be added, that might be taken out, or some could just be amended, we are open to the discussion.
I mean, one of the clauses, obviously, is that, government is locked into it for 10, 15 years. So if anything was to happen within that period where there's a big boom, the state loses out. And it's one thing which I think the state is not comfortable with. I mean, wouldn't that be, an obvious clause to take out if the gold is ours?
Well, yeah, you can say that, but I'm saying, you say that if things are good, the government loses. What about if things go bad? Wouldn't the government lose out as well? So we have to look at both sides of the coin. I mean, if you are looking at just things going good, things going up, what if the price decides to fall beyond? The company is also the agreement is assigned for stability of some costs, some taxes.
Do you advise?
And for the taxes, and it's some laws. Sometimes you have to pay money in upfront. In lieu of that increment or changes, you are made to pay some money in upfront, and some of the companies didn't do that. So it's not like government is losing totally; they are getting the money in advance.
Ahmed, as Chamber of Mines, do you advise government in any way as to what is a good agreement, or don't agree to this, or go this way or go that way? What's your role?
No, we can advise government. And this agreement, you see, government come and government go, and we are talking about government as a country, not a particular person. But we are a private company, a private association. We don't invite. A government decides what they want, and then they look at what is happening around the world, and they bring it to the table for discussions between company and the state. So the state will then look at the merits and demerits of it, and then after various discussions, it's agreed and signed.
Okay, hold on. I think I have Mr. Steve Mantia also on the phone, who's the Executive Director for ISODEC. Steve, good evening.
Good evening, and let me just make a quick correction. I'm the Campaigns Coordinator for ISODEC.
Campaigns Coordinator. I beg your pardon. We are looking at the renegotiation of the Stability Agreement clause between mining companies and the state. And I believe maybe you can speak to it. What is it that we need to renegotiate and why?
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share some perspectives on the subject matter. You recall that in the last year or two, there have been sweeping changes to the fiscal regime in the mining sector. Particularly, we are looking at the change in the corporate income tax rate from 25% to 35%, a variation of the royalty rate from a range of 3 to 6% to a fixed rate of 5%. This is because over the years, the companies have stuck to the very minimum of a range, which is 3%. Mm-hmm. We have also introduced an extra profit tax of 10%. And these have all come about as a result of Ghana's implementation of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, which has revealed that the fiscal regime, which has been in operation for some years now, is not responsive to changes on the global market. So at the time when gold prices were going pretty high, Ghana was not receiving commensurate returns in terms of a share of the bumper revenue. And so making changes to the fiscal regime enables Ghana to capture a fair share for the increased revenues. But then having initiated these policy processes, policy review processes, we discovered that the two largest producers of gold in this country, that is Anglo Gold and Newmont, have stability agreements with the government of Ghana. What stability agreements do basically is that they freeze the national laws such that if you were to change the tax regime, it wouldn't affect those companies that have stability agreements with the government. And there is a rationale for this kind of dispensation because these companies have made huge investments. In fact, the law, the Minerals and Mining Act 703, provides that if you invest 500 million and more in the mining sector, you become entitled to these special agreements. And so it kind of protects your investments and allow you to recover your investment before the fiscal regime can change. It is also good for corporate planning in terms once you know that this is going to be the fiscal terms under which I'm operating for the next 10, 15 years, you can plan properly and all that. So there is a reason for doing that. Stability agreements came into vogue really as a result of instability in developing countries, both political and also the frequent changes of the legal regimes and all that. And so for somebody to invest heavily in your economy, that person will seek those guarantees that things are going to remain the way they are, at least for the next 10 years, so I can plan and see what my returns will be in the 15 to 20 years horizon. And that's why we have them. But I guess the time has come because, for instance, if you look at the reports of Control Risk really is an agency that evaluates the investment risk, particularly in the mining sector, but not other sectors of the national economy. And the rates are pretty high. That we've had a pretty stable political environment for the past close to 20 years. The laws regarding taxes and all that have also pretty been stable. The macroeconomic stability also has been something that has been taken into account. And so really, there is no basis for continuing to entertain stability agreements. At best, we can make stability agreements two-way streets so that if companies can take advantage, of reduced taxes, because that's what it is really. When you increase taxes, it doesn't affect companies that have stability agreements with the government. But then when you reduce taxes, they can take advantage, and we think that is not fair.
Wow.
The time has come to make stability agreements responsive to changes on the market so that we can come to some agreement that, look, if prices increase beyond this level, Ghana can initiate a process where we review the fiscal regime to ensure that we capture a fair share of the extra revenue. And if prices are to drop below a certain level, which invariably will affect the fortunes of the company can also initiate a review of the fiscal regime to make sure that at least they are able to go through those stormy periods. And so really, the renegotiation of stability agreement is just to create a win-win situation in the mining industry.
I mean, if I don't think they're going to agree, would they? I mean, if they've made 500 million investment and they still have 8 years before it runs out, and you're saying that, look, just in case in 3 years' time gold shoots up, I want more of your profit, they're going to say, no, I've already signed a contract.
Well, yeah, really, it's not about asking for more of their profit. They're allowed to make their normal profit that they make. But just the extra profits that have come about as a result of increases in global price levels is what we want to share with them. I mean, I think it's just fair. The current arrangement where they capture almost all the windfall profit is not fair to the resource owner. And this is what we are seeking to address.
Okay, Steve, hold on. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I'll put a question to Kweku. Obviously, we'll probably say we should stop mining altogether, but I'll come back to Kweku right after the break. Hello and welcome back, and we're discussing the renegotiation of a stability agreement within in the laws between mining companies and the state. Kweku,
yeah.
Assuming the mining companies agree to all these things and all is hunky-dory, what next? You know, with the effect of mining, then what next?
I think this discussion should move beyond just the stability agreement, and we should also focus on the cost-benefit analysis of the extractive sector within the country. Mm-hmm. If we are to purge the benefits of mining to its costs, then as a nation we can decide as to whether to mine or not to mine. And it will also help us to make informed decisions as to whether the stability agreements that we have in our laws is essential or not. We know mining has been with us for centuries now, and we know there are lots of people who are engaged, especially in the unofficial side. We have people involved in, excuse me to say, illegal operations known as galamsey. Records has it that almost 1 million people are engaged in that and are earning their sources of income for it. And also from the the formal sector, we have about 30,000 people who are also being employed within the formal mining company zones. The country also reaps also from mining. We also do get foreign exchange earnings, and also we also do get our royalties from it. But in spite of this, it's associated with a lots of problems. If we have a company displacing 7,000 farmers who are in the informal sector of our economy and are earning their daily incomes through farming, and you destroy their livelihood and you replace it with 300 skilled workers who will be working in a mining company, then you begin to understand that there's the disparity between those who would benefit and those who would lose. Comparing 7,000 people losing their livelihoods to employing 300 people within a mining company, you know which people would suffer. So this discussion goes beyond just the stability agreement. It should look at in total whether the country is really benefiting from mining as it stands now.
The last time there was a spillage, and I think you came from Newmont,
yes.
You know, and I remember as a state we didn't have enough clout to even find them or get them to correct the mistake. I'm wondering, with this new agreement, if they're going to put a clause in there. I think I've got Steve on the line now. Hello, Steve.
Yes.
Steve, you see, I have Kweku in the studio, and we're just looking at, assuming the mining companies even agree to all these clauses and all these extra charges and everything, have we done a proper cost benefits to make sure that the amount of damage to the environment, indeed we are making enough profit to repair it, to continue along these lines?
Unfortunately, we have not. You know, before a company decides to invest in the mining sector here in this country, that company would have done the what you call the feasibility studies, so they know what they are getting in return for the investments they make. Mm-hmm. What we don't do as a country is also to do our own projections in terms of the investment we make, the mortgaging of the environment, the social dislocation and all that are coming, and what will be, in our view, a fair compensation for these kinds of investment that we make as a country. And so as we speak, we are unable to say for sure what the cost is to us in terms of mining. Mm-hmm. But you see, I'm aware of a study that was done by, I think, the EPA somewhere late 90s that puts the cost of environment at somewhere around, I think, 4% of GDP.
10%.
And I think the World Bank has a study that puts it even higher at 6% GDP. But these studies are a bit old, and I think the time has come for us as a country to undertake the actual...
Steve, let me interrupt, but how much is gold put into GDP? I mean, if the cost is 6%, or 3 to 6%, you put it at 10.
10%.
Kweku puts it at 10%. What do you get your report from?
Well, it's from the source that he said. From
the EPA?
Yeah. No, not from the EPA, from
World Bank?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have between, 3 to 10%. But how much do we get from mining?
Well, in terms of revenue, I think we're getting something close in the region of $1 billion, which is about 5% of the total income generated in the sector.
So if we have 5 and we are damaging 10%,
almost 10%.
So we are negative 5. Have I got Steve? I think Steve's line is a bit big. So that means we're making negative 5% in the industry.
Even if we use the figure that he said, 6%, currently we're also getting 6%. So that's the cost of mining to the environment is 6, and our revenues that we're also getting is 6. Then that means we are not going anywhere. We are still at a standstill. So and even moving beyond the environmental, there are other human rights abuses costs which have not even come in. We talk of people who have undergone several human rights abuses. Some have been killed, some have been maimed just for entering into lands of into concessions of mining companies.
Let me get Steve now. Steve.
Yeah.
Very good, Steve. So I mean, at best, we are sort of working on zero now in terms of what we get and what we destroy.
But yes, and that is precisely why the government, and I think we should commend the government for these bold initiatives. The reason why we've varied the fiscal regime, we've made quite substantial increases in the corporate tax rate that the companies were paying. We varied the royalty rate. We've introduced an extra profit tax and all that. This is all aimed at ensuring that at least we move from the position where we found ourselves until these reforms were done. So at least we were able to bring in a little bit more in terms of returns from the investments we make in the mining sector as a country.
See, but there are 13 major mining companies in the country, and there's only 2 who seem to not have a stability clause. Are the rest all, in the new agreement, or if I may put it?
Yeah, you see, that is precisely why, and something that also supports the renegotiation of stability agreement, because the smaller companies are all complaining on fair treatment, that they who make the least are having to pay higher royalty, that is 5%. And the large companies, AngloGold Ashanti and Newmont, who are making the most of the revenue in the sector, are paying lower royalties, which is 3%. And in fact, as a result of that, I'm aware Gold Fields indicated that it also wanted to increase its investments in its operations in Ghana so it can benefit from lower royalty rates. And government had to tell Gold Fields to stay put till the renegotiation of the stability agreements are concluded. And so we are hoping that the outcome of this renegotiation will be such that at least the incentive for Gold Fields to also go in for stability agreements will be diminished, because it will become a win-win situation and not really one that is to the advantage of the companies alone.
Steve, were these contracts signed out of desperation? Because I mean, some of the percentages seem quite low.
Well, I've heard a member of the team that renegotiating the stability agreement describe those who signed the contracts on behalf of Ghana as stupid. Excuse my language, but that's the description they make. Yes, they are indeed ridiculous, and one cannot understand what was running in the heads of those who negotiated for these kinds of agreements. But these things happen when in a country you do not have open contracting regime. Because, you see, when there is these things are negotiated in private. Let me give you an instance, and with something that I know is in the renegotiation of the Newmont agreement. You have property rate being a major source of revenue for district assemblies. But can you believe that in the negotiation of the Newmont Development Agreement, they were exempted from paying property rates?
Wow.
So that a specific district has been deprived of a major source of revenue without any compensation, because there was no arrangement put in place to kind of make up for the lost revenue to a specific district. And I think this is not fair to the district. But this is what Newmont came out with in this negotiation. So the deal, the contract that we have with most of the mining companies are in bad taste.
But we seem to be in a hurry to get more, companies to come, that, our doors are open, come and invest.
Well, you see, it's good to attract foreign direct investment. But if we do not blow off the cover of opacity, I mean, the kind of secrecy within which these negotiations take place, then people acting on behalf of the people of Ghana are always going to negotiate bad deals in return for personal gain. That is what you call rent-seeking in the industry.
I mean, let me bring Kweku in here. I mean, Kweku, some of these things that, companies coming to mine gold and you wouldn't get property rates to the detriment of, the locals, and somebody would append the signature. I mean, these things are not fair.
It's sad. It's sad that a country that's blessed with so many natural resources, we are not making good use of it. We are not exploiting it in a way that will benefit its citizens. And with this issue of property rates, Newmont's not paying property rates for the operation based on the development agreement. When you go to a community in Obuasi, the Obuasi district, they are earning almost 400,000 from Ghana cedis from property rates. So you can tell the problems associated with having such stability clauses. A community earning about 400,000 for its developmental project, and one not having anything. And one thing which I would also want to add to this stability agreement is that with Newmont's development agreement, government, we've given our 10% freeholding shares within Newmont's operations. Government is required to have 10% in the operations of mining companies that operate. Unfortunately, we have given ours out. In 2011, Newmont's cost of production was around $500. And at that time, the price of gold was hovering around 1,500. 500 and 1,005, cost of production 500. And so you can imagine the profit that came. But because we didn't have that 10% shares in it, we didn't reap anything. Imagine even if they had gotten, let's say, even $600 million, at least we could have gotten 60 million just from that 10%. But because of our development agreement with them, we also lost out on that one also. So maybe to be frank, we are not exploiting our natural resources in a manner which would benefit the citizens.
I mean, Steve, what's a good way forward? I mean, do we try and diminish mining companies slowly, or what's a good way forward?
Well, I guess a good way forward, well, like I said earlier, will be to ensure that we get more transparency and in the negotiation of these contracts. We need to make the whole licensing process open. They will be subjected to public scrutiny. But I guess we need to look beyond just collect taxes and revenues as a way of getting some benefits from the mining sector. To ensure that globally, countries that have been able to make some progress in terms of the extraction of their natural resources are those countries that are themselves active participants in the exploitation of the resource. And that is not to say that we should return to the era of gold mining companies and all that. No. But you can actually buy into the companies that are extracting your resource. So beyond your taxes, beyond your royalties, you'll be taking dividends as well. If you go to Botswana, for instance, DPS is a major mining company that's exploiting the diamonds of Botswana. But the government of Botswana have established a withholding company, Botswana, with EBS, which is 50-50. So you mine for us, and we take 50%. And that is a way. I mean, if you look even the oil sector as well, you see that Norway, you have Statoil. We go to UK, you have BPs. You go to South Africa, South African gold is being mined by South African mining companies. And all that. That is a way to maximize benefit. We also need to ensure that we put in place a local content law for the mining sector that ensures the integration of the mining sector into the rest of the national economy. Look, if we have such a policy, then there is a way in which we will not sometimes take our royalty in cash, as we've always done over the years, but we will maybe take royalty in kind, in gold, and feed the raw material gold into our jewelry making industry. When you do that, you'll be adding value to your gold exports. We'll be exporting gold earrings, trinkets and all that, and gold bars. By doing that too, we are creating jobs for our people, and as you create jobs for your people, you are creating tax opportunities that will go to finance your national development. That is a way to maximize benefit from a resource extraction, and not to just become a rent collector, collecting taxes and not even able to collect them efficiently.
Steve, are these things all going to be in the renegotiation? Are they going to put these things in there?
Well, the renegotiation will just change the fiscal terms. But I think beyond that, we need to have a national policy that actually articulates our own vision in terms of what role we expect gold or all other mining activities to play in the national economy, and then enact appropriate laws to pursue those policy objectives. As I speak with you now, we have a law for the mining sector, which is Act 703, but we do not have a mining policy. So, which is an aberration. It's a misnomer. I mean, what policy objectives is Act 703 pursuing? It is not clear. And that is why we continue doing things in a way that doesn't make sense, and that therefore do not get better returns for the investments that we make as a people.
Stephen, who should take a lead on this? Parliament, the executive, the cabinet? Who should take, or civil society? Who should take lead?
You know, we cannot, as a people, the 24 million people, get into the business of managing the gold sector. And that is why we elect people to act on our behalf. But in fact, the people that we elected, the politicians, have not been able to give us that political leadership. Look, I think we've come to an era where we need leaders. The current crop of people we have, we call leaders, are not leaders, they are administrators who are seeking a lot of offers, seeking benefits for themselves, and not pursuing the larger national interest. For me, I think the responsibility rests with us, the electors. We should make elections in this country count for something. We should vote on the basis of what governments are able to deliver, to the extent to which they are able to advance our national interest. That should be the basis for sending a particular party to power. But if we continue the way we have done so far, then there's a way in which, as a people, we all lose out.
Very well, Steve. Steve, hold on for me, Kweku. I'm going to take a break, but when I come back, I want to find out. I mean, Steve is giving an example as Botswana doing 50-50, BP in the UK and Norway, and these things are not secret. They are all documented. I just want to find out why we haven't emulated them all these years. Stay tuned. We want to find out why. Well, hello and welcome back. And the discussion is renegotiation of the mining stability agreement, which basically means you give an investor who's coming to invest in the mining sector a long period of briefing space to work and get their money back. And sometimes the details are just not fair to the host country. However, before we went on a break, I was asking if indeed Botswana is doing 50-50. What are they, why can't we do it? What are they doing that we can do?
I think I would want to start from where Doc started. He said in the 1980s, due to the political and economic instability, we decided to make our laws somehow more flexible for multinational mining companies to come and invest. And in so doing, we've created a safe haven for them in their investment. However, 20 years ongoing. We should have moved from that, and still for us to be operating on such laws. Personally, I believe that most organizations, most NGOs have really made lots and lots of noise about this issue, and I think it's the political will on the part of government to get these laws which would benefit the countries in place. Why am I saying so? Because they had the power to make such laws, mining laws, to govern the country. If, as of now, the law came into being in 2006, 7 years now, if we are not benefiting, what stops you from amending the laws? Because at least we've learned from our mistakes, and civil societies have highlighted most of the mistakes. But it seems to me, I will conclude that it's political will on the part of our legislators.
It's a bit shallow mind, because if you do 50-50, then Tekbe would have a lot of money in his coffers. He won't be being chased and lambasted every day. He'll make more money. So, I mean, what I don't know, just...
It's sad. It's sad that still after all the various petitions that various organizations, and even aside just the revenue aspect, I always talk about the effect, the environmental and fiscal effect is so huge that it should even let you offset the issues about revenue. It should even cover up even the issues about revenue. But it seems still our whole perception about even amending the law or reforms in the mining law is based on revenue. So I think it's the political...
Ankobra was in the news recently, the river Ankobra, which is completely, poisoned and mudded out. I don't know if you followed the news last week.
Yes, it's sad when it comes to mining activities. Water is the first issue. And if you look at Section 17 of our mining law, Section 17, our water rights, it gives the opportunity for mining companies to impound, and divert, use water in any form upon getting a license to operate. So you can imagine if we have such laws operating within the country, then what will be the use of water to us?
I never knew of that law, Steve, do you know of this law?
What are you referring to?
Section 17.
Section 17 that allows miners to sort of use water, divert it in their operations.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
I think it's a shame on all of us.
Yes, and I think the time has come for us to stop blaming mining companies for the ills in the mining sector, because the mining companies did not write these laws. We wrote them ourselves. I think those of us citizens on whose behalf the politicians acted, we need to begin to ask the questions, ask them to explain how they could negotiate such bad laws in our name.
It's funny enough, I never heard that. I'm almost embarrassed to continue the interview. And
but I mean, all is not lost yet. I mean, one needs to recognize the progress we have made. We have been engaged, and I'm happy to say that this government has been pretty responsive to some of the concerns we've been raising. I mean, the policy reform, the tax policy reform that I referred to earlier, did not come out just because they ought to be. But it's some engagement and also some responsiveness on the part of government to really bring about these changes. And I'm pretty sure that if we continue pushing, there's a way in which we can reverse all these things that do not make sense in our statutes, and as well as in the contract we sign with mining companies.
I mean, I come to Koko, because up until last year, I think, or 2 years ago, for a kilometer square that you mine, you pay 50 pesos to...
Yeah, that's ground rent. That's being paid a kilometer square land.
That you mine?
Yeah, that you mine on. That's the concession that you have, whether you are mining on it or not. When you've acquired it as your mining concession, you are supposed to pay 50 pesos. But I think as of last year or two, it has been changed to 9,000. And even when it was at 50 pesos, I don't know of any mining company that ever paid the ground rent.
And
I don't know. I stand to be correct, but I don't know of any.
And it will be false economy to go and take 50 pesos, because if the guy is in Ashanti in Accra, it will take you 200 cedis to go and get 50 pesos.
Yes, so that's why I said it has been reviewed now to 9,000 Ghana cedis per kilometer square land.
I think we've been very wicked to ourselves, Steve. What do you think?
Yes, we have. And I need to say that even the 9,000 that Kweku refers to, the companies have refused to pay. And it's been more than a year now, and they've not paid a penny. Rather than comply with the new regulations, they have petitioned Parliament to get Parliament to reduce the amount. And news coming to me today suggests that Parliament seems to be doing or ready to do the bidding of the companies by halving the fee that was sent to them by the Office of Administrator of Stool which ups the thing from 50 pesos to 9 cedis.
9,000.
Steve,
9,000.
Yeah. Steve, how many refineries have we got on the continent? But 3, 4?
You mean gold refinery?
Yes.
I'm only aware of South Africa, and I know the bulk of our gold is either goes to go to South Africa or London.
It's almost, this interview is becoming an indictment on all of us.
Oh, there's another one in Tapa, actually. It's in the bush. It's buried. There's the one that Nkrumah attempted to build.
It's being used by students.
Is there anything banning us or stopping us from completing it?
Nothing really. I know there's a private one that has been established recently somewhere in Accra, and information reaching me is that they're doing good business. I'm not too sure where they're getting their gold, raw material gold to refine.
I mean, Steve, for the benefit of my listeners, some of these things are so simple that, they might think, hold on, what's going on here? I mean, are there some hidden clauses that we are not aware? Because from what I understand, Nkrumah did about 60% of this refinery. So we had to find money and finish the 40% of it. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. But it was in somebody's interest not to complete it. In the same way that it was in somebody's interest not to amend the petroleum income tax law for 2 years. And we sat by, and Sabre Oil sold their share, got away with the non-payment of capital gain tax. And the EO Group also sold and got away with the non-payment of capital gain tax. Between the two, we lost about $70 million. After we had gotten away with the money, the minister is only now, in the 2014 budget, announcing that the general provisions in the income tax laws will apply to the petroleum income tax.
So moving back to this renegotiation, what would we benefit, other than the few rent, as you were saying?
And that is why I would want to look beyond the renegotiation. There's a whole lot of things that we need to revisit and try to review if we are to make any headway in ensuring that natural resource extraction in this country becomes a catalyst for our national development.
Let me talk to Kweku. I've never heard any political campaign use environment as the key. That when we come back, reforestation, clean water, protect your rivers. We never use it, and as electorate, we never demand it too.
Well, I believe it's an indictment on all of us as citizens, that the Constitution even says that it's the duty of every citizen to protect the environment. So if it's our duty and we've neglected it, then it's an indictment on all of us. However, I know last year during the campaign period, the organization in which I am working, we engaged several political party executives on the need to inculcate environment and mining issues in their manifestos. And by so doing, most of them incorporated it in their manifestos, which is a social contract with us. So it's up to us, the electorates, to also make sure that they enforce these things in their manifestos. They have it in their manifestos, but it's up to us, the electorates, also to make sure we follow up to make sure these things are taken care of.
I mean, it's a long shot, but where did we lose our connection with environment? Because once upon a time, we're very environmentally focused. So at what point did we lose, touch with our environment?
It's when we thought natural resource extraction has just got to do with the revenue aspect of it. we were looking at the revenue aspect of it, neglecting the benefit that the environment is to us. So, and you can tell most of our rivers, most of our forests that we have are places where we also have our natural resources. We have our gold in our forest reserves. But we even have laws which even states that mining activities should not, our 1999 National Land Policy states that mining should not be done in forest reserves. But we've given some of our forest reserves out to some mining companies to operate. So as a state, that's why I say it's a political will on us to really make sure we act as safeguarders of the environment within the country.
Hello, Steve. Have I still got Steve on the phone?
Sorry?
Steve.
Yeah.
How do we do, this education to sanitize each and every one of us to know the importance of it? Because we're almost bordering of self-disrespect now.
Yeah, I agree. We as ordinary citizens and activists, are doing the best we can, sensitizing people on the ground, but also engaging with policymakers to see what change we can bring about. But before I make my final comments on this discussion, I want to say and share with you some views expressed by people we often don't regard. A cocoa farmer, a woman, cocoa farmer in a village that we engaged on some of the mining-related issues that we're discussing now.
Yeah.
This lady said she has a cocoa farm. That cocoa farm has a lifespan of 30 years. It does no damage to the environment. That cocoa farm has looked after generations in school. They get scholarships for their children just because they have the cocoa farm, and their children are able to go to school. What economic sense guides those of us who take a decision to cut down the cocoa farm and make way for mining, which destroys the environment, pollutes their water, and creates all kinds of sicknesses within the community? And I think this is a very fundamental question that we should be asking ourselves.
And we are supposed to be the quote-unquote educated.
I didn't get that.
I said we are supposed to be quote-unquote educated.
Yes, we are supposed to be educated. And this is somebody that we often, but normally will not regard because we think that they are illiterate. Yes, they may be illiterate, but they are not dumb. And they've done the economic rationalization of their cocoa farming activity against farming.
Well, are you part of the negotiation team of this? This.
I am an observer.
You're an observer.
as an ordinary citizen, I'm just following with keen interest and seeing how they are going and making comments here and there as and when we have opportunity.
And again,
but I have absolute trust and confidence in the person leading the negotiations that he will do a good job for this country, and that is Professor Akila Pasoya.
Well, that's reassuring. At least we'll have a document that works out. This Section 17, is there any way we can take it out of the contract?
Well, the good thing is that the Minerals and Mining Act has come up for some amendments. I remember at the time when that was about the last under Dr. Mills, Ms. Shariaiti set up a committee to take another look at the Minerals and Mining Act. But that committee didn't, and I think the committee was chaired by Tonelita, but they didn't go very far because there were disagreements in terms of whether or not the Ministry of Environment had the mandate to take leadership in reviewing the act. Indeed, I agree with those who thought that the Ministry of Environment did not have that mandate because the responsibility for bringing about any amendment in the act will rest with the Minerals Commission. Okay. And so the Minerals Commission just couldn't sit by and allow the Ministry of Environment to usurp its mandate.
I've run out of time. Is there any way we can take that out to protect our waters?
Yes, it will take an amendment to the Act.
Well, I hope it happens soon. Thank you very much, Steve, for joining us. And when the renegotiation is done, I hope to get you again so we scrutinize it and see if it's better than the old one. And Kweku, thank you very much too for joining us. Well, folks, it's that time again. A very sad interview, isn't it? Very sad interview. Anyway, just final comment. What would you want to see, with regards to mining?
I think for now, the best thing to do is for us to involve citizens in decision-making processes concerning mining. Those who are really affected the most by mining, especially host communities, do not really have the benefit of being part of the decision-making processes as to whether to mine or not to mine. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones at the receiving end. So therefore, in our laws, we should incorporate the free, prior, and informed consent from the ECOWAS directives. If we do amend the laws, this is one thing which I would want to see, that citizens' participation is key in deciding whether to mine or not to mine.
Citizen participation. Thank you very much. My name is Anan Sakwa. Again, just to remind you, send a text message on my behalf, RTPKWAW, to 1446. Who knows, maybe next week I might turn up with an award. But so far, I'm an award nominee, and that's fine. We're happy with that. But it's your contribution, and thank you. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again.